Hey guys, welcome to the Time to Man Up podcast. I was going to go one direction today and I've kind of shifted up and we're going to delay a little bit where I was going to go. But today in this episode, I want to talk to you men about, specifically you men that are married, and we want to talk about date nights with your wife. Now, I know some of you hear the discussion of date night with your wife, and instantly you're like, I don't want to hear about this because you don't do well at it. Well, I just want you to know this, that the guy who's going to be talking to you about this today, myself, doesn't do a great job at it. I've gotten better over time, and actually we started off well with it, but then life happens, right? And before you know it, those things begin to disappear. Now, I have seen men in my life that do an amazing job at continuing to date their wife once they're married. Because it's one thing, men, when we're pursuing that woman, when we want to impress that young lady and we want them to become our wife, we work really hard on that sometimes. But then once we get that prize, when we get married, we've got our wife, then all of a sudden it is easy to forget to date our wives. So what I want you to do is, as we work through looking at date nights with our wives, I want you men to remember back to when you dated your wife. Or perhaps you're listening to this today and you're not married, but you are dating. You are in the process of dating for the purpose of finding that right woman to marry, right? I mean, the purpose of dating before marriage is to find that special one who one day would become your wife. And as you begin dating one person exclusively, you begin to wonder, is this the one for you, right? I mean, when we are in the process of dating, we wonder, is this the one for me, the one I'm going to marry, the one I'm going to commit to with my wedding vows to spend the rest of my life with her, right? Till death do us part. Now, we're not going to get into all of the irreconcilable difference because, guys, as followers of Christ, divorce should not even be a word in our vocabulary. Listen, when you sign up for marriage, when you take those vows in front of people, in front of God, you already know it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy for you, and it's not going to be easy for your wife. Men, after 33 years of marriage, there are times when I'm talking to my wife and I'm like, I'm still trying to figure out why God made us so different. Now, guys, it's great because that difference can be complementary difference, but it can also be friction difference, right? Where it causes conflict in our marriage. And because of that, it makes it even more important that we are dating our wife after we get married. And so there's that adventure and that pursuit that takes place as you are trying to find out that special woman that would become your wife. But most men, and probably maybe even most women, would not want to go back to that time and do it again. There's a lot of pressure in dating, right? You don't want to ruin a good thing. You don't want to get in the way. And so there are a lot of challenges that come with that. Many things about the dating experiences are good, but it also comes with a lot of challenges. So once you married the one, perhaps you lost that adventure. Perhaps you lost pursuing her. And with that, the dating process just disappeared. So how does a couple recapture the good aspects of the dating experience in their marriage? And I will tell you this, men, The more life gets complicated, whether through your job, through children, whatever it is, life stages, whatever it be, the more life gets complicated, the more important dating your wife becomes. So, as we consider this, guys, we want to look at the adventure, the pursuit, the romance. I mean, right? I mentioned romance, and you guys are like, yeah, I'm out. The romance. Okay, how about the surprise, the fun, and even that undivided attention that she gave you and you gave her? Early on in marriage, my wife and I had some amazing adventures, right? We were young, newlyweds. We had jobs, but we had flexibility to go do what we wanted when we wanted. We didn't have an animal to take care of. We didn't have kids. And I know that, we love animals. And when ours passed, our golden retriever passed, I told my wife I would love to have another one. But there is something about the freedom of being able to go and do what you want without having to worry about that responsibility. And so when we first got married, we had all that freedom. We had the freedom to do what we wanted, when we wanted to do that, even though we really didn't have a lot of money to be able to go and do extravagant things. Fortunately, men, there are a lot of things in life that a couple can do that won't break the bank. I mean, I still remember times on vacation where we would take the kids to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And while everybody's going down the paid, they're getting the tubes, they're buying it, and they're going with all the different organizations that do it down there. We went to Walmart and bought tubes, and we would just drive down the road. And when we saw a place in the stream that looked fun, we would go down and ride our tubes down it. Guys, we had some amazing stories. We've got some embarrassing videos from those times, but we just had an amazing time as a family. And it didn't cost us much. And I learned that because when I was growing up, my parents did the same exact thing. They knew how to have a good time without breaking the bank. And then children come into the picture, right? When children come into the picture, it changes everything when it comes to that adventure, that dating. And so over a 2-year period, men, we had 3 kids. Really, 22 months separate our twins and our third son. And so we had a son and daughter twins and then our son. And all of a sudden, we went from having no kids, we could do what we wanted when we wanted, to now we had 3 kids in a 22-month period. And so that became a barrier. So we were dealing with seminary debt. We were dealing with medical expenses from the birth of our twins. They were born premature at 31 weeks. We were dealing with the busy schedule for myself, just becoming that full-time youth pastor, associate pastor. So there were times when my poor wife just felt like a single mom, that I wasn't there as much as I would have liked to have been because I was all in with my ministry. And I had to sometimes reevaluate and make sure I wasn't forgetting about the home front, right? Men, there are many of you that because of your job, because of your busyness, and need I say this, because of the fun things you like to do. Maybe it's playing golf. I remember there was a man that he quit playing golf when he had a family because he said, I can't handle getting 4.5 to 5 hours, giving that up to be on a golf course when my wife is home with the kids. There are times when we have to evaluate the things that we do. So in our time of early marriage, we've got 3 kids. A couple times people said, hey, you know what? We want to help you get a date night. And so we're going to come over and watch your kids. And let me just tell you that it often, and remember, only 2 times, it did not go well. There was one time my wife and I went out. We were all excited. I mean, somebody was actually willing to watch three crazy kids who ran all over the place. And listen, their dad wrestled with them and did crazy guy stuff that maybe a lot of parents wouldn't do, but we did it. And there's video to prove it. And so we went out on a date, and it was nice. We were so grateful. You know, your mind is still on. You hope things are going well. Hope the kids aren't terrorizing the wonderful people that were willing to babysit our children. And when we got home, men, I walked into my front door, which led right into my living room, and they had reorganized all the furniture in our living room. I mean, they had moved everything around, and they said, well, we thought this would be better for you. Dude, I don't do well with that stuff. And I was like, oh man, I was so thankful for your willingness to watch our kids. And now that just ruined it, man. I mean, I came home and I had to spend about a half an hour to an hour after they left rearranging our living room so that I could return it to the way that it was. Guys, dating after marriage is often difficult, but every couple needs to find a space in their life for it. The nice thing is that marriage brings some changes to dating, right? Your wife doesn't care how much you spend on her or how well you dress, but men, it doesn't hurt sometimes to put on a nice outfit, take your wife to a nice place, a nice date night, and show how important she is by doing that. At the same time, often they are satisfied with just the opportunity to get out. And if you have kids, you know what I'm saying, to get out and just have adult conversation, to not have the kids with you. That's an important part of that dating our wife. She has also seen you at your very worst and still loves you anyway. So we know that we don't have to put on a show. We can be who we are. You don't need to impress her. Though again, I would say this, men, it doesn't hurt to every once in a while surprise her with something out of the ordinary. Shake things up. Do something unexpected. I mean, when you were dating, that was the fun thing about it, right? You're getting to know each other and you're just doing different things that maybe you wouldn't usually do. It is easy, men, in our marriage to get in a rut after years and years of marriage, doing the same thing over and over. And sometimes we need a shift to our paradigm, a shift to the way that we do things. So we need to make sure not only that we do things different, but men, we need to make sure that we do the things that our wife likes to do. Or if you're in a dating relationship, guys, listen to what that young lady likes to do and make sure to plan that into those date night opportunities. And since it doesn't happen very often when you're married, make sure to make every date night count, men. Make it special. Make it count. If you are going to get a babysitter for the kids, if you are going to pay a babysitter to watch the kids, make sure that you put some time into planning what it's going to be like. And when you're out on that date, men, make your wife the central focus of the night. There are times when my wife and I will go out to eat or something, and she knows me. She'll make sure that I get the seat that looks at the TV so that I can see what's happening in sports. But man, imagine this. Imagine if you went into, now I know if you go to like places like Buffalo Wild Wings or places like that, every seat faces a TV. But can you imagine if you took your wife out and you love sports, and for you that don't love sports, you're like, yeah, I really don't care. But if you love sports and you chose the seat that did not look at the TV, can you imagine what that would communicate to her? That would show value. So we need to make sure that our wife knows that she is the focus of that night. We do the things that she would want to do. Sometimes it's best even to go somewhere where no one knows you so you can avoid interruptions. There were times as a senior pastor that if I would go out in the community where I was a pastor, it was pretty difficult to go somewhere where I wasn't going to run into either somebody that I knew from church or somebody that I knew from the community, from being involved with sports or whatever it was difficult. And so there were those times where it was valuable to go somewhere where no one knew you. Now, for us, one of the places that I love to go was called the Spaghetti Warehouse in Dayton, Ohio. If you are listening and you are from Ohio in that area, you know exactly what I'm talking about because there aren't many of them. But I loved going there, and it was an area where I did not know anyone. So, very unlikely that we would run into people. And so, that was a place that we liked to go. But you have to find that place where maybe you can just have that uninterrupted time. But sometimes date night needs to be a spontaneous adventure. So right, men, sometimes it needs to be planned. You need to get it on the calendar, but sometimes it needs to be like, hey, babe, let's go tonight. Let's go do something. Now, what we found is that as our kids went off to college, even though we did not have the money to do it, we found there was more spontaneity in doing different adventures because now we did not have to worry about the kids or their schedules. And even when they were in high school and could function on their own, we had the ability to do some of those things. But take those opportunities, men, to do something that you have never done. Take her somewhere that she has never been before and just have that new adventure, that going into the unknown, right? And guys, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm just going to tell you I'm a horrible failure at this, but make sure that you have physical contact. And I'm not talking about where your mind just went, right, guys? I mean, when I say, hey, when you're out on a date, make sure to have physical contact. I'm not talking about making out in the car or what happens later on that night. What I'm saying is this: when you have the opportunity, hold her hand. I'm not a big hand holder. But one thing I learned is sometimes we'd be sitting on the couch. Maybe I'd be watching a sporting event. She'd be reading her book. And I would reach over and put my hand on her hand and show her that care, that love that was through that physical touch. And it wasn't a physical touch of what can I get later on because of it. She knows that I'm not a hand holder. When we're out walking, I don't do that. There are couples that do that all the time, and that's great for them. I just don't do that. But we need to be able to show our wife valuable physical contact when that opportunity arises. Here are some thoughts on dating your wife, guys. When we look at dating our wife, we need to be purposed by scheduling date nights and getting them on the calendar, right? Be planned. My wife likes to know, she doesn't really like the spontaneity of a date. She would rather know when we're going so that she can mark it on the calendar, so that she can do things throughout the week to get ready for it. Whatever it is, she likes to know. Now, sometimes we're going to be spontaneous in what we do, but by getting it on the calendar, we are showing them that they are important. Guys, I would even say, take her back when you first started dating by repeating something you did before marriage. Think of one of those places that your wife loved to go when you dated before you got married and try to relive those opportunities. When you're out dating, guys, you need to do this. Do away with the usual talking points for the night. And it is hard. I remember one time my wife and I went out. I remember this specifically, sitting around the table, eating dinner, and we're trying not to talk about the kids at all. And every discussion led back to talking about the kids. Guys, we need to be purposed when we go out. Let's talk about each other. Let's talk about our relationship. Let's talk about things like that, or even random things that we've never talked about before, and try to stay away from the usual topics, because there's enough normal time that we can talk about those usual topics. Now, again, remember, if you've got kids, this is difficult, but be purposed to make it happen. Men, here's another thing that you need to do. You need to know your wife's love language and plan around that rather than your own. If you don't understand the love languages, and guys, I'm not big into this, but I know its value. I know it's important, because if you are loving your wife in a way that isn't one that she communicates in, then you're probably wasting your time in some ways. And so if you don't know what love languages are, search that on Google. You can find that out, but know that so that you make the most of your time. And remember, you need to show your wife how important she is. One of the ways you can do that when it comes to date night, men, is take the day off. Take the day off from work, or leave early. Be purposed to leave early to show her that this is an important thing that you are doing. You might even want the kids to have a sleepover, right? Have the sleepover so that you can have the home to yourself. I mean, guys, think about it. You go out and you have a great night on the date night, and you come home and the kids are there, right? The kids are there. And man, you guys might both come home and you are just ready to heat up the night, right? Men, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But you need to plan for that. If that's what you hope to achieve that night, well, then you need to make room for having that, either the kids spending the night with someone, grandpa and grandma, or whoever. For us, we really always lived in places where we didn't have family, so that was difficult. It really didn't happen. But when that can happen, that's helpful to those date nights. But here's a warning for you men. It takes a lot of time to earn points with your wife. Whether they want to admit it or not, you earn points with your wife. And I don't know the magical number where your dreams come true at night as far as earning points, but here's what I know. You can lose all your points in an instant with a word that you say or an action that you do. I mean, there have been nights, men, and I can still picture one of them in my mind right now, where the kids were gone, and they were older, but they were gone. They were at college and they were out with friends, and I was like, man, this is great opportunity. And so I planned an awesome night that I was hoping would lead to a hot night in the bedroom. And I know that, as Baptists, we don't like to talk about those things, but guys, God makes sex an awesome thing, and it is meant to be in a marriage. And so I was excited about the evening. I was like, man, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it's going to lead to hot times in the bedroom. Unfortunately, and I still remember, I just said something stupid. And my point value went from full to empty, maybe even negative. And I had worked all day, all week toward this moment to earn the points, and they were gone. Needless to say, that night that I was planning on, that hot night that I was hoping for, did not happen. Men, in a blink of an eye, you can destroy the night, you can destroy the vibe of the night, and it's gone. And listen, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know, because some of you have been there and done that, and you understand that. So when we look at dating our wife, guys, it is so important. So I want to end with some final thoughts on dating your wife, and kind of some bullet points that are important when it comes to dating your wife. And the first, number one, when it comes to that, is make time no matter what. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much time you have, men, you need to make dating your wife a priority. Now, I'm not saying that there has to be this is every week that you have to do it. I think that a good target time is once a month. If it can happen more than that, that's great. But it seemed like for us, we were always bouncing back and forth to a sporting event or something that was going on in the kids' lives. And so if you can aim for one time a month, that is great. I mean, that's far more than many people do, many couples do in a relationship when they're married, when they have kids, especially. So make time no matter what. Number two, have good communication when you're out. If there are things that you need to talk about and privacy gives you that opportunity, can I just say this, men? Too many couples do not talk about the two most important things in life that can cause problems in a marriage, and that is sex and money. And sometimes when you are alone, you have that opportunity to talk about those things, things that you can't talk about in front of the kids and when you're out on a date. And so I would say this, have good communication. It's great to talk about things when things are going well rather than in the midst of a heated situation, right? I mean, there have been times when I planned a great night, and that night ends up with my wife and myself rolling to opposite sides of the bed. And I've always told couples this, that when you go to bed like that, you open the door for Satan because you leave him a spot right between you and the bed. And couples, don't go to bed angry. Don't go to bed frustrated. And we know that the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Don't go to bed angry, but we still do it. And what happens in the morning? You don't wake up and everything's resolved. You wake up and you still are angry, frustrated, whatever it be. And we know that for many relationships, you deal with the situation of that a wife, due to pure exhaustion of the day or whatever, the man can want sex. He can be ready for sex. And the woman rolls over and goes right to bed. And the guy sits there frustrated and probably doesn't even sleep all night because they're wrestling with that frustration. That is the challenge that we have in a marital relationship. Now, that's not what we're getting into in this episode, but have good communication to talk about those things before they're issues. Number three, get creative, men. Think outside the box. Do something that they would love to do, but do something that is just creative. And that does not mean expensive, guys. There are ways that we can be creative, think outside the box that aren't expensive. And that's why number four is be good with cheap. Just because it doesn't cost a lot doesn't take away the value of it. And so men, we need to look at things. If your finances are tight, find things that are just fun. My wife and I used to love going out to the park when we were in seminary up in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Loved going out during the fall, and sometimes those were date nights. We just went out and walked through saw the fall leaves, and it was awesome. But there are different things that you can do, that we can be good with being cheap. Number five is this: do something active. Don't always just make it where you go and eat dinner. Do something active. Maybe that day night, if you both golf, you go golfing together. I don't know what it is, what you enjoy to do, but make it sometimes that it is an activity that you both like to do. And I would say this, men, sometimes you got to do activities you don't want to do, but it's what your wife likes to do. Number six, we got three more. Number six, ignite the sizzle. And can I say this? Maybe it's going to be mostly men, but there might be some women that listen to this. Ladies, ignite the sizzle. If your man has taken the effort to plan a date for you guys to go out, man, get dressed up, wear that outfit, make him drool a little bit. That's cool. And because it is our responsibility as men and women that in that marriage relationship that we ignite the sizzle. And guys, if your wife is igniting the sizzle, don't you pour water on it. And women, if your husband is trying to ignite the sizzle, don't put the flames out. Don't make fun of what he's doing. But we need to ignite the sizzle, because what happens in a marriage is we just begin to go through just doing the same thing over and over, right? We go through the motions. And it just becomes, hey, this. Okay, go to bed. Guys, we need to be igniting the sizzle, and it's important for that in a marriage. Number 7, as I said before, take advantage of overnights. If you know the kids, even if you don't have a date night planned, if the kids are going to be out late, if they're going to be gone, whatever it is, make plans. Make plans to spend some time out to do something, but take advantage of overnights when the kids can go spend the night at grandpa and grandma's. That's a great opportunity. And then finally, number 8, one thing that you might not think about is this. If you have simple errands to run, turn them into date nights. There were times for ministry that I would have to run to Sam's Club, and we would have to run about 25, 30 minutes down to Sam's Club. And so my wife and I would go together, and we would turn that errand, that ministry errand, into a date night. And those were great opportunities. We might take in a restaurant that we hadn't been to before, and maybe even share a meal. If we didn't have a lot of money, we would just share a meal. And because let's be honest, when you go out to eat, it can get expensive. And so we would find ways around that, but turn those simple errands into date nights. So, man, I hope you find this helpful when it comes to the importance of dating your wife. Make sure to join us for our next episode, men, because this is where I was going to go today, and I decided not to. But I just had the great opportunity to go to a Tampa Bay Lightning game with my daughter. We had a great time. And dating our wife is important, but men, if you are a father, it is important to have daddy-daughter times, because a lot of times men hanging out with their sons, it's like you go out and do guy things, and they talk our language, right? Because women don't always talk our language. We can't always understand them. And remember, I'm not saying 100%, but often when we're out with the boys, it's different than when we're out with the girls. And men, we need to be purpose in spending time having dad-daughter time. And what I think I'm going to try to do, and this is why I pushed it back, I'm going to try to convince my daughter to come on the podcast. You know, that would be the first, because we've never had a woman on the podcast before, but we need to, so we can get their perspective on it. I guarantee you on this one, if my wife was here and part of this, she would be like, yeah, he's not so great at those date nights. And I know that, and I try to do better, and I fail probably more than I succeed. But we'll see if I can get my daughter convinced to come and be part of the podcast next week as we talk about daddy-daughter nights. You know, when they're kids, they have the daddy-daughter dances, but we need to continue that on even when they're older. We need to have those opportunities. So until then, men, if you are married, get back to dating your wife. And make sure that you never lose that. Men, if you're just dating right now and you're searching for that woman that God has for you, when he does show her to you and you get married, never forget that adventure, that pursuit that you experienced in that dating relationship. Men, you will not regret it. And your wife, when you're married, will appreciate it. Men, it's time. It's time to man up.